Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about detachment and why you attach quickly. And speaking about this in a romantic relational context. So the definition of detachment is to be emotionally unattached to particular outcomes. And you may be wondering, why would I want to be unattached emotionally? And emotional attachment isn't bad at all. But sometimes we can attach emotionally to things too quickly. And as a result of that, that attachment can be more of a detriment rather than beneficial to us. An example is with dating. If you attach to someone emotionally too quickly, or if you attach to someone quicker than they attach to you, you may start behaving in ways that start to push them away because you're more invested in the relationship than they are. And if you're not very far in that relationship to begin with and you're only in those beginning stages, that will just signal to the person that you're not coming from a healthy place. Because people who are securely attached and who are healthy know that when it comes to truly getting to know someone and vetting someone, that process takes time. And because that process takes time, whatever unfolds as a result of that process can either be beautiful or something that isn't favorable. And that is what gives us the information that we need in order to either keep moving forward or move away from that accordingly. So for this video, we're mostly going to focus on a romantic relational context. And so let's get into why you attach so quickly. So the number one reason why you attach so quickly to other people is because of something called fantasy bonds. And so the definition of a fantasy bond is when the illusion of connection between two people replaces genuine love and intimacy. And if you go back and watch my last video about fearful avoidant attachment styles, I talk about other attachment styles in that video as well. And so people with insecure attachment styles are more likely to form fantasy bonds towards other people because their attachment needs weren't met when they were children. So because of that, they'll move towards their romantic relationships as a means of getting those childhood needs met. And securely attached individuals don't usually have these problems because they were able to get those needs met, and thus they're securely attached. So they're able to securely attach to their partners as well. But what we have to understand is that when we're quick to jump into relationships, that's because the idea of the relationship is built upon a fantasy. And all insecure attachment styles go into a relationship built upon the illusion of a fantasy, because they're going towards someone else to fill a void, a hole inside of them, and to essentially rescue them from all the pain that they're in that may not be conscious to them. And that is what a fantasy bond is. And with fantasy bonds, it's so easy to develop limerence. And if you want, I can go into a whole video about limerence. But with limerence, we're essentially rejecting the person that is in front of us because we're idealizing a version of themselves in our head. So as far as fantasy bonds go, when we find another person and let's say they're meeting our needs and they see us and they truly hear us and they're connecting with us deeply, our subconscious mind projects onto that person that person may be the solution to our pain. Because if we have insecure attachment styles, there's a great likelihood that our needs aren't getting met. And when our needs are constantly unmet, we feel constant emotional pain. But when our needs are getting met, we feel loved. So the foundation of love is our needs being met. Kind of like when you're hungry and you've been hungry for so long, your stomach starts to hurt. And you've just been hungry for so long that you stop getting hungry, but the hunger is still there. It's just slowly eating away at you. That's how it is with our emotional needs if we don't get them met. And when those needs are not tended to, it's so easy to form fantasy bonds with idealized people in our heads. And it's so easy to develop limerence around them as well. And these needs go unmet because for whatever reason, our parents were unable to meet those needs. In our romantic relationships, in our parental relationships are on the same playing field, because once you get into a romantic relationship, that relationship essentially replaces the relationship you have with your caregiver or your parent. So if you did not attach securely to your parent, you will not be able to attach securely to your partner. And attaching prematurely without truly knowing the person could just lead to so much emotional pain, not only for ourselves, but to the other person as well, because you're not truly seeing them and connecting with them for who they are. You're connecting with them for who it is that you want them to be. And you're coming at it from a very selfish perspective because you're looking at this person to meet your needs and to be who it is that you need them to be so they can save you from your pain. But this is a human being who has their own pain, who is still going through their own stuff and who is still processing processing their own, sometimes trauma, and who still has wounds of their own. And they are not put on this world to save you. And so for whatever reason, when the relationship ends, because most times it will, because it's not built upon a firm foundation, it's not built upon truth, the relationship will end. And we can be so heartbroken and we can feel so much pain, but we're not actually grieving the person. We're grieving the idea of them. We're grieving the idea of who it is that we needed them to be so we can be okay. There's still a childlike part of you who needs you to sit with them. And it's so painful because it's a child in you who's grieving, who couldn't get their needs met. And the reason why it's so devastating to that child is because the child needs those needs to be met. Because when those needs aren't met, we skip entire developmental stages. And the reason why those emotional voids are so deep is because those are literally parts of us that we're not able to grow up. And those are parts of us that we're not able to mature. And when that occurs, we become emotionally stunted, and it is stored as trauma within our nervous system. And when it's stored as trauma in our nervous system, that part of us that was traumatized as a young child becomes frozen in time. And it's frozen in time because it's unresolved. So when that part of us is triggered by love, and the child within us thinks that, oh, we can finally get our needs met, we can finally be seen, we can finally be loved, heard, and understood, so we can move past these developmental stages to get to where we need to be. That is devastating to the child when it doesn't work out. So there's some healing work that needs to go along with this, because we truly need to be able to sit with our inner children and truly meet those needs by ourselves, because no human being can meet those needs. Because when it came time to meet those needs, no one was there for them. So, and we cannot go back in time to get those needs met by our caregivers. So we need to do some reparenting work and be there for our inner children to meet those needs, so that we do not attach prematurely to other people. And not even attached to them, but attached to the idea of them, so our inner child doesn't constantly get re-traumatized by projecting that fantasy on people time and time again. So with all that being said, let's get into how to detach from potential outcomes. So for me, first is to have a strong relationship with God and with myself, because without him there is no firm foundation. And with him I was able to discover the truth of who I am. And with discovering the truth of who I am, I was able to hold space and give myself grace for the parts of me that were wounded in the past. And I was able to, with his love and with his grace, learn to love those parts of myself and truly be present with those parts of myself. So I was able to truly process that grief and move through it. Because grief is a form of adjustment. Grief takes us from one place to another. And usually if we're attaching to people prematurely, there's definitely some unprocessed grief that we need to work through. Because we don't only grieve what happened to us as children, we grieve what didn't happen. And if you're dealing with fantasy bonds, we have to grieve what happened as a result of what didn't happen. And in that case, that's getting our needs met. And so once I learned how to truly see my needs as worthy and start meeting them on my own and learning to fill my own cup up half full, that's when I stopped moving towards people from a needy space. Because with being able to meet my own needs and also keeping my focus on God and knowing that he would meet my needs, that helped me to be full and approach people and dating from a whole place. So I wasn't going towards someone else empty. And that wholeness is really important, because people who are healthy and people who are secure, they're not looking to save someone else. They understand that they're imperfect and they may have wounds, but they have the skills to not only give themselves grace and process their grief and work through their wounds, but they'll give you grace and space as well. However, they cannot fix you and they cannot save you. My second way of detaching from potential outcomes is to focus on your mindset. And by this, I mean focusing on a mindset of abundance rather than a mindset of lack. And by this, we focus on the truth that there is always more than enough. There is always more than enough love to go around. There is always more where that came from. And because you are worthy of love, you can easily find it anywhere. Your worth is not dependent on whether or not the person in front of you is able to love you. And if the person in front of you cannot see your worth, there is someone right behind them that will. Having a scarcity mindset keeps us holding on to people longer than we should, because scarcity is focused around lack. And Satan, which means adversary, is the little god of lack. but God is the big God of abundance. And when we have a scarcity mindset when it comes to dating, it can be so easy to sort of be targeted for predators and abusers, because one thing that they do is they get you to focus on lack once they have you. And by this, I mean, when you try to leave them, they can say, like, no one else is gonna love you like I do. There's no one else out there in the world who will put up with you, blah, blah, blah. Because it is a tactic of the enemy to get you focused on lack. Because if you're focused on lack, you will ignore all of the abundance around you. So abundance is also extremely important when it comes to detachment as well. The third way of being able to detach from potential outcomes is being in the present moment. Now, if you struggle with shame, which is very likely if you have an insecure attachment style, I can make a video about toxic shame as well. And what toxic shame does is that it keeps us out of the present moment. And it keeps us out of the present moment as a coping mechanism. Because with toxic shame, we're either hyper fixated on the past and how we're bad and broken and wrong and something's wrong with us and stuff like that, or we're hyper focused on the future. I need to get here, then I'll be worthy. I need to do this, then I'll be worthy. Because you believe that you are where you are right now and it's your fault. It's your fault that you weren't able to get your needs met. It's your fault that you were abused. It's your fault that you were neglected. And we take responsibility for everything that's happened to us, and that's what causes toxic shame. We view ourselves as the problem, which is also a trick of the enemy, because a fruit of the enemy is shame. And shame is so detrimental because it keeps us chained to the past, or it keeps us chained to a lie, which is usually formed in the past. But anyways, going back to the third point, being present in the moment. And not only being in the present moment, but not attaching any meaning to the present moment. And by this, I mean meaning about the other person. Being aware of what objectively happened in reality. An example of this is, like, let's say if you're on a date or if you're with someone you like and they give you a compliment, and we make that mean, oh, this person really likes me, they want to date me, they want to be with me, blah, 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 blah. And we give it all this meaning that isn't true. You made that up. But if we're able to look at that objectively in the present moment, all that happens is that this person gave you a compliment. Kind of looking at it from a robot perspective. And a robot is not able to pick up on emotional data. They're only able to pick up on the logistics. And so this doesn't mean don't feel good about the compliment that they gave you. Just don't attach meaning to that feeling that is untrue. We can feel good about the compliments we receive from other people, but when we attach meaning to those compliments that are untrue, that's when we step into that fantasy bond territory. Our bodies create emotions for only 30 seconds. So you can feel it, feel good, and allow it to move through your system. But if we get stuck on that compliment, we begin to ruminate about it and make it mean stuff that it doesn't. Not only are we beginning to form a fantasy bond with that person, but we're also stepping into limerence territory, and we're projecting quite literally our insufficiencies and insecurities on someone else. Because if we're ruminating on what it is that someone else said about us and it's good, it's because subconsciously we don't believe that thing to be true. And so we're constantly looking to that other person to continue to fill that void and to continue to pour into us. And we can become clingy and needy because we don't have an internal source of self-esteem to draw upon. And if we don't have any self-esteem of our own, we shouldn't be in a relationship to begin with. And God wants us to be in the present moment anyway, because in the present moment is where He is. But if we're trapped in our mind and we're looping and we're ruminating, we're no longer in the present moment. We're attached to the past. And being attached to the past and the idealistic version of the person that is being formed in our mind as a result of that can prevent us from being in the present moment and extracting from the present moment what we need in order to move forward. Because if we're in our minds and this person is giving us clues that they're not interested, or they're giving us clues that they don't want to take us seriously, or they don't have the same dating outcomes as we want, we can be so focused on what it is that we want and so enamored with this idea of this person and just ruminating about them that you fail to see that you and this person are not on the same page, and that also creates pain. But it only creates pain because you're grieving the ideal of someone, not the reality of them. Being in the present moment allows us to collect the data that we need to determine whether or not this is the right person for us. And this is a skill, and learning this and mastering it will take time, because the purpose of learning is not knowing something. The purpose of learning is to master it. And mastery is the ability to execute something without the use of conscious resources. kind of like tying your shoe. So to kind of wrap all this up, when it comes to detachment, we cannot determine the outcome of something. All we control is our input. So all we can do is put our best foot forward, and the output is God's job. And when you focus on showing up the best version of yourself and you're focused on showing up authentically, naturally you'll begin to attract people to you that are right for you, because you're focused only on being you and expressing your true self and expressing your needs and being able to express your boundaries. And the more you show up as your authentic self, you'll weed out people who aren't for you, because your authentic self is amazing, and your authentic self is extremely attractive. But your authentic self isn't for everybody. Because you are embracing your authentic self, you learn to love your authentic self. And before you know it, you'll continue to show up as yourself, and then you're in flow. And when you're in flow, things begin to flow in your favor, because you're moving with the current of God and not against it. Because when God moves, he moves in a flow. And when you're operating out of a place of pain, you're not truly being authentic, because you're operating out of a place of childhood survival. And you were not put here on this earth by God to survive. You were put here to thrive. And in order to thrive and be successful, you have to be in a state of flow, because success comes from ebbing and flowing. And if you want dating success, you need to be in that flow. And when you're in that flow, you'll notice that you won't take things as personally. And you'll notice that it'll be easier for you to set your boundaries, and it'll be easier for you to just show up as you authentically. And if you continue to show up as you authentically, before you know it, you'll be with the person of your dreams. Because the person God has for you is exceedingly, abundantly more than that which you could have ever imagined. Not saying that they're perfect, but they're perfect for you, your authentic self. And in order to recognize them, you need to be the authentic version of yourself anyways, because the lens through which you're seeing them and the lens through which you're seeing the world in general aren't distorted by pain anymore. So as you go out into the world, you need to guard your heart, for out of it flow the issues of life. And if you're sensitive and a deep feeler like me, these steps that I've given you can help protect you from potential predators. So thank you so much for watching this video about detachment. I really hope that it was helpful. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and give me information and feedback in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective about this. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching, click the link in my bio, and I'd love to meet you, and I'd be happy to chat with you. So with that all being said, I love you. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, and I will see you later.